Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. As we said yesterday, the purpose of debate is to ensure that each of you fully understands the proposals before you and to provide both the proponents and opponents of motions the opportunity to explain the implications of the motions as they view them. Chair will be fair and impartial insofar as humanly possible and attempt to give both sides on the issue the opportunity to fully present their views. Please remember that only amendments or main motions that were submitted by 11 o'clock a.m. on Friday will be considered. Jeff Mize, Chairperson of the Resolutions Committee, will now present the report of the committee. Jeff.
Thank you, Vice President DiMauro, President Higgins. I would like to direct your attention to the greenish-yellow book that was in your packet. It is our proposal of the updated resolutions report. In it, you will find the amendments as well as new resolutions in amongst the current resolutions report. The way you can tell that an amendment is a new one or a resolution has been amended or is new is at the end of every resolution are 1 or 2 years listed. The first year would be the year that it was first adopted into the report. The second year would be its latest amendment. So if there was something new from this year, it would list an 18. Okay? What I would like to do is read the titles of the different sections of the report, and as I do that, I will direct your attention to any changes that we made to that section.
Before we proceed, just so everybody's clear on the process, as Jeff reads through the titles and highlights the changes, if there is any item that you wish to place a hold on in order to allow debate on that item, please yell out "hold," and we will make note of that, and we will set that aside for debate. After Jeff has read through all the titles and highlighted the changes, we will act first on a motion to approve any items that are not held, and then we will proceed to debate any of the items that have been held. Jeff, you may proceed.
So on behalf of the Resolutions Committee, I move the adoption of the 2018-2019 Resolutions Report. Okay. Section A is entitled, Serve as the Voice for Education in Ohio. In Section A, we had 2 resolutions that had amended language. They are A4, Achieving Excellence in Education on page 12, and A6, Parental Involvement also on page 12. In the subsection titled Quality Education, we have A24, Rural Education, which is on page 19. The second section of the report, Section B, is entitled Advance the Cause of Education for All Individuals. In the subsection entitled Lifelong Learning, which starts on page 23, we have 3 resolutions that had language amendments. B3, Independent Reading Skills, which is on page 24. B5, Students' Attendance, which is on page 25. And B9, High School Diplomacy/Equivalency, which is on pages 26 and 27.
There's been a hold on B9, correct? Okay.
Thank you. In subsection Educational Equity, starting on page 28, we have amended the language in B23, Education for All Students with Disabilities. In subsection Curriculum Content, which starts on page 36, we have moved a resolution from C16 to this section, made it B35, entitled Peacemaking Skills and Development of International Relations. We renumbered everything after that. In the last subsection, learning issues not related to specific disciplines, we have effective control and management of school discipline, which is B59 on page 46. Section C of the document is entitled Promote the Health, Safety, and Welfare of Children and/or Other Students. In the subsection entitled Health, Welfare, and Safety, which starts on page 57, we have amended language in C1, Student Health and Personal Services, on page 57. C5, Drugs, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Chemical Dependencies, on page 59. We have a new resolution, which we worked very hard on for a couple of years, and some of our most senior and respected members formed a special committee to work on this one, and they have my eternal gratitude. C7, the anti-opiate treatments, on page 60. And as I mentioned earlier, we moved C16 out of C and moved it to B35. Another new resolution this year is C18, Hazardous Materials and Environmental Contaminants, on page 64. In the subsection entitled Student Rights, we have amended language in C30, Children and the Media. In section D, entitled Promote Professional Excellence Among Educators, we have amended language in D4, which is entitled Mentor and Induction Programs, and that is on page 73. In section E, which is entitled Gain Recognition of the Basic Importance of the Teacher in the Learning Process and Other Employees in the Educational Effort, that one's a mouthful. In the subsection entitled Academic Freedom, we have amended E3, the impact of federal and state legislative mandates. In the subsection entitled Curricular and Instructional Materials, which starts on page 91, we have amended language in E11, Instructional Excellence, E14, Religious Heritage in Instructional Materials, and E15, the development of curriculum. In section F, which is entitled Protect the Rights of Educational Employees and Advances in Interest and Welfare, in subsection entitled Pay, Equity, and Comparable Worth, which starts on page 96. There's actually several other subsections, collective bargaining and bargaining issues. We have amended language in F22, benefits for educational employees. In the subsection entitled Protection of Educational Employees, we have two new ones, F46, which is protection of education employees from age harassment, one I was especially interested in. F57, education employee liability, which is on page 117. In section G, which is entitled Secure Professional Autonomy, under the subsection entitled Accreditation on page 120, we have amended language in G1, which is entitled Accreditation and Approval of Teacher Preparation Institutions. That was just a very quick change. In section H, Unite Educational Employees for Effective Citizenship, we have amended language in H1 entitled Educational Employee as a Citizen. In section I, which is entitled Promote and Protect Human and Civil Rights, which starts on page 126, we have made just a change to the title of I-6. We changed it from the invasion of privacy to the right to privacy. We've amended language in I-9, sexual harassment. We've amended language I-11, entitled Human Relations in the School, on page 130. In subsection The Rights of Specific Groups, we've amended language in I-18, migrant workers, on page 132, as well as I-20, the protection of senior citizens, on page 133. A new resolution that we added this year is I-29, racial justice, which we worked on very diligently as a result of an NBI from this body last year. That's on page.
Hold on I-29, is that correct? Did I? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Okay. In section J, which is entitled Obtain for its members the benefits of an independent and united education profession, we have amended language in J3, the promotion of teaching as a career choice. And with that, I would like to, again, on behalf of the committee, move the adoption of the resolutions report minus the holds that have been listed.
Thank you, Jeff. The motion that we will vote on first is to approve all recommended resolutions except for B9 and I-29. All in favor of the motion, please say, well, first off, before I do that, is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. You have adopted all resolutions other than B9 and I-29. Would people that placed holds on those two items please move to microphones? We will move first to item B9. And I recognize, hold up, which card, well actually, I'll just recognize the delegate holding up the yellow card, trying to figure out which card you want to hold up. Carrie Walchuk, microphone 3.
Hi there, Carrie Walchuk, Field Local Teachers Association. B9 is just editorial. The last sentence, the association should be believes, should be an S. That's it.
If there is no objection, we will make that editorial change. Is there objection? Seeing none. Now let me put B9 as modified before you. All in favor of resolution B9, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay, you have adopted resolution B9. Now we move to resolution I-29. Recognize the delegate with the yellow card at microphone 2.
Jane Ron, WOEA retired. I'm not against the I-29. I just think it's a little wordy. And I didn't know if the committee could put a few more periods, or I just think when you read this, it's difficult to really understand what you're trying to say, even though I really like what you're trying to say. So I don't know what I would want to say.
Well, let me just say, unless you have a specific amendment to suggest, the committee will take that as feedback for next year, but otherwise, if you have an objection to the resolution, it's debatable. If you have a specific change that you would suggest to the resolution, it is amendable. Otherwise, I'm going to put the question before the body.
Okay, that's fine. But
Okay.
I would like them to maybe look at it next year.
Okay. Jeff, can you just make a note of that? Thank you. Is there any discussion on resolution I-29? Seeing none? Not on this, okay. All in favor of approving resolution I-29, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. All right. Jeff, thank you very much. You have adopted the resolutions, and let me recognize the delegate at microphone 2 with the yellow card.
Point of information.
Yes.
I said hold on B23C, but no one heard me, so it's a point of information for next year, maybe?
Go ahead.
IEP is an individual education program in IDEA, so I understand that it wasn't heard and passed on the changed language, so maybe for next year we could change it back to the original language that it was, because we are now changing it back to non-IDEA language.
Let me recommend that you have a further conversation with Jeff on that, and
that's why
as we look at that for next year. Okay.
That was point of information.
All right. Jeff, members of the Resolutions Committee, thank you very, very much for all of your hard work. Very much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
So the next thing on the script says, it is my pleasure to introduce Scott DiMauro to give his legislative report. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Scott DiMauro, and I am the Vice President of OEA, and it is my honor to share with you our legislative update. Good morning again. I want to first direct your attention to the legislative update that was provided with your delegate materials and the legislative success document where you can get more details, and you can also find on our website, and I'll highlight that a little bit later, more information on much of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to try to give you kind of the high-level overview, but I want to start by recognizing our outstanding government relations team. We have our lobbyists, Melissa Clark, Robert Davis, Matt Dotson, also from our GR staff, Russ Harris, Dan Ramos, our administrative associate staff members in GR, Lisa Simpson, Chantel Dixon, of course, Director David Williams, and I also want to give a shout out to my assistant, Lori Gray, who keeps me on track and is really, really instrumental in the work that we all do together. So we've talked about it, the context that we're in, and I want to mention first off, of course, the national context. We're waiting for a decision in the Janus case at any time. Of course, this is a well-funded effort by anti-union, anti-public education interests who care nothing about freedom of public employees, as they use the courts to advance their political agenda, which is all about weakening our voices. These are the same people that brought us Senate Bill 5, the same people that thought that Betsy DeVos, as Secretary of Education, was a cool idea. These are the same people that created the ECOT mess that we're in. And to quote what Becky said yesterday in Twisted Sister and Daily, we're not going to take it, right? But I think even more than that, this is a golden opportunity for us, given, you know, this heightened awareness that we all have related to membership and the importance of demonstrating every single day in what we do, how we show the relevance and value of our union membership through the support and relationships that we provide to one another, through the protection and advocacy that the union provides, but especially in this context, through our collective power and influence that we have together that we can't have by ourselves. So I'm not scared of the Janus case at all. I think we're in great shape, and I think it actually gives us some leverage as we talk about some of these issues. There's also another context that was mentioned yesterday, but things are sort of chaotic down the street. As you know, the Speaker of the House recently resigned in a cloud of scandal. We have some pretty intense infighting within the Majority Caucus in the House. In fact, next week it's expected that the House Republicans are going to try to appoint a new Speaker for the rest of this term, and we'll see, you know, which of the factions prevail in that, or if they kind of punt and wait until after the November elections in January of next year to make that determination on future leadership. But that's all part of the upshot of all of that, is that a lot of things that, and this can be a good thing or a bad thing, but it kind of slows down the works when you've got this kind of chaos happening in the State House. And then, of course, you've got hanging over everything the continuing ECOT cloud. So where are we? Well, as has been the case for most of the last 8 years, we're playing a lot of defense. And on a couple bad bills that I'll highlight in particular, one is on the voucher issue. House Bill 200, Senate Bill 85 would dramatically increase the number of vouchers provided to students to attend private schools. It would dramatically increase eligibility requirements up to 300% of poverty. And it's really just changing the whole conversation. It's a flat-out giveaway to private school interests. The good news is we have been successful with our allies in keeping this terrible piece of legislation bottled up in committee. And then you probably heard about House Bill 512. House Bill 512, Governor Kasich's brainchild, and by the way, it's not completely unrelated to that teacher externship idea. I mean, he's just full of great ideas. But it's this ill-advised plan to really strip away policymaking authority from the State Board of Education, really undermine the democratic core elements of our public education system, and then create this super agency where you combine K-12, higher ed, and workforce transformation. The good news on House Bill 512 is that not only are we and other staunch allies of public education united in opposing this, but there's been a buzzsaw of opposition from the right as well. Homeschool interests, like coming out of the woodwork and talking to their allies in the legislature. And so it is highly unlikely that this bill is going nowhere fast. But this is one of those things you want to keep an eye on, especially during lame duck after the election, you know, as a potential parting shot from John Kasich and outgoing members of the legislature. So there's that kind of defensive stuff. But what I'm really pumped about right now is that we're actually playing offense in ways that we haven't in quite a while. Because of the relationship building that we've done, and because these really bad policies of the last 8 years are becoming more and more evident to not just our members, but to people throughout the education community, we actually have a chance to get some good stuff passed. And the one I want to highlight first is House Bill 540. We've been talking about this for a little while. This is the bill that would implement recommendations of the Educator Standards Board to get rid of that 50% standalone student growth measure in OTES. And we've got a real chance to pass this bill. So you might recognize the guy on the left, our Ohio Teacher of the Year, who you heard from yesterday, testified along with Jeannie Cerniglia, who is just an outstanding advocate on our Educator Standards Board from Wayne County. And they testified a couple weeks ago in House Education Committee on House Bill 540, knocked the socks off of the people in the committee. And what we're hearing from the sponsor, Representative Gavarone from Bowling Green, shout out to NWOEA, is that this bill could be getting a vote even as soon as this week. And so we're hoping certainly to get it out of the House by the end of May. We're hoping to really get it passed quickly so that the timeline for implementation, the clock can start running now so we don't lose a whole year. If this doesn't get passed until lame duck, then we've lost a potential year for implementation. There's going to be a phase-in period no matter what, but we'd rather that start as soon as possible rather than, you know, start later. So if you haven't contacted your state rep, you haven't contacted your state senator to say, please pass OTES reform now, do so. Another issue is our terrible school report card system. We all know what report cards do. Report cards, which are all about labeling, blaming, and shaming our schools, our districts, based on test scores, and that really just tell us what we already know. That districts that have more resources have better test scores, and districts that have fewer resources and have concentrations of high poverty students don't do as well on test scores. Well, Representative Mike Duffy, who is a lame duck member of the House, unfortunately, I'm really sorry to see that he is term limited and going to be leaving. He's actually my state representative where I live in northern Franklin County, has been working diligently for probably at least 6 months now, and hand in hand with the State Board of Education on House Bill 591, which would dramatically reshape our school report cards. Instead of A to F grades would be completely gone, and instead we would have a dashboard approach that would be much more parent-friendly, community-friendly, to say, okay, of the things that schools have control over, how are we doing? What do we really need to be working on? And instead of comparing, say, Columbus City to Dublin, let's focus on, when you're talking about similar groups of students, what kind of comparables make sense. He recognizes that the current report card system, and he agrees with what we've been saying for a long time, is inherently biased against low-wealth districts. And they're confusing and they're misleading, and it's time to restore trust in the system. This is one of the things that people hate about ODE, and they look fancy, I guess, when you look up the report cards on the website, but they really don't provide a lot of helpful information. And this is really the centerpiece. And by the way, our Commission on Student Success, this was one of the major areas of focus. Tracy's right here, nodding her head. She was part of that commission. So we know that this is really important. Now, what's missing from the bill is a repeal of House Bill 70 and those accountability issues. And we wish it would go further. But if we get this passed, it's going to make it a whole lot easier to get rid of state takeovers and academic distress commissions, because we're taking away the foundation for all of that. So again, encourage your legislators to support House Bill 591. Charter accountability. We had overwhelming passage of both House Bill 87, which deals with being able to get money back if there's been fraud back to school districts, from charter schools, and then House Bill 21, which cleans up attendance verification issues. Both of those bills overwhelmingly passed the House. We expect them to pass the Senate. It's a way to continue to put the squeeze on and improve that level of accountability of charter schools. We've also heard a lot about the ongoing audits and the fact that just this week there have been a number of criminal referrals that have been made, and we're expecting there could be more shoes to drop on that as charter operators have been cooking the books. In fact, the specific thing, we had the whistleblower that came forward a couple weeks ago who worked for ECOT and was directed to tweak their software even after they were required to pay back $60 million to the state so that their attendance would look better than it really was. It is criminal. People need to be going to jail, and we need to be voting out of office the people that created this mess. So we're going to keep the heat on charter schools. And then school safety and discipline, critically important. The Parkland shootings, led to student uprisings, and then combine that with a heightened awareness, and we're dealing with some of that stuff in resolutions, about issues of equity and justice in terms of the way we mete out discipline in our schools. So one of the things that we're actively working with Senator Lehner on is a bill, Senate Bill 246, which would generally prohibit suspensions and expulsions of young children. But the bill doesn't just do that. One, it recognizes, because of our input, in fact, because of the action taken by this representative assembly last year, that you still have to, protect people from violent behavior, So if a student is a threat, if a student brings a weapon to school, obviously that's a whole nother category. But when we're talking about students that are just simply, that are disruptive because they're not engaged, what we need are supports, PBIS, restorative practices, to help make sure that they're successful. We know that excluding students from learning doesn't do anything to help them. And so Senate Bill 246, I think, takes a really positive step on that. And then, of course, there's the issue of safety as it relates to mass shootings in schools. And you've heard the debate. And the evidence is clear based on, what we're hearing and the polling evidence from members across the country. Arming teachers to make schools safer doesn't make any sense. We are not going to get safer schools by putting more guns in schools. Now, Governor Kasich, and we've certainly had lots and lots of issues with Governor Kasich over the last 8 years, But he did something recently in the aftermath of Parkland, and that's actually listened to people from across the spectrum to say, what are some common sense reforms that can happen to help address gun violence? And he issued some executive orders, but he also has a legislative package, House Bill 585 and Senate Bill 288, that among other things, keep guns out of the hands of domestic violence offenders, provide for new emergency protective orders, improve background checks. They prevent illegal, or they make illegal straw man purchases, really close loopholes on that. Bans armor-piercing ammunition and bump stocks. I mean, this is all common sense stuff. This is stuff that 90% plus of the American people support, but you've got the NRA that's, you know, blocking all that. And he's saying we need to take action on this. And he came to us, and we had our staff, Melissa Clark from our lobbying team and Patty Nyquist, our education policy director, who met with the governor's staff and with other stakeholder groups. He said, hey, look, the only people that they're hearing from down at the State House are the Buckeye Firearms and NRA folks. Help us out here. And so we have, the board of directors took action on Thursday unanimously to support House Bill 585 and Senate Bill 288. They're completely consistent with our resolutions and our legislative policies, but we need to speak up. I mean, our students are doing amazing stuff, but we need to join them. We need to support them. This is common sense stuff. So I'm asking you right now to take action. And if you go to, actually you'll see right there, if you go to OEA's action page, www.ohea.org/action, you will see right at the top is act now to email your senator and your representative to get them to support House Bill 585 and Senate Bill 288. I know Wi-Fi is kind of non-existent right now, but if you've got a cell signal and you can take your phone out right now, in fact, if you can multitask while I'm talking, you know, as I'm giving the rest of the report, really, it's so easy. It takes like 1 minute to fill out the form and submit and send those emails. And then if you've got time on Monday, make phone calls and talk to your fellow members and ask them to take action. This is such a simple thing to do, but it will make such a huge difference. All right. Moving on. Whoops. So there are a number of other, if you go to the website, you'll see that you can also, while you're at it, take action on House Bill 540. While you're at it, you can take action on House Bill 591, the school report card issue. And you can also take action on a retirement issue that is important for us. So we monitor all 3 retirement systems where we have members, STRS, SERS, and PERS. And we have a number of members who are PERS members who work for county boards of developmental disabilities. And because of a rule change recently, these are people that work on a school year calendar, but suddenly they're not getting a full year's credit for their school year of work. And we need the legislature to fix that, and we've been working closely with members of the House leadership to get a bill, House Bill 572, passed to make sure that people that are working on a school year calendar get a full year's credit for their service. It doesn't affect a large number of our members, but it has profound impact on every single one of the people that it affects. On STRS, we're monitoring, certainly we're doing everything we can to make sure that the defined benefit with all the systems, the defined benefit's protected, that we don't see anything like happened in Kentucky happen in Ohio. But specifically, we've got healthcare funding at the top of the agenda right now. And good news on healthcare funding, because the healthcare fund for STRS is at 153%. And just the other day, the Healthcare and Pension Advocates Group met, and we are recommending to the STRS board that they not roll back a planned elimination of Medicare Part B reimbursement, which would cost members about $30 a month when they're funded like that. And so we're hoping that the board's going to do that. And we're also expecting good news in terms of premium costs for next year. And then SERS, paying very, very close attention to healthcare issues there. SERS has been doing really, really good work to leverage resources together. And they've got a wraparound plan that ties the SERS healthcare plan with the marketplace, and at a very, very low cost to the system, there are hundreds of SERS members that are getting substantial subsidy benefit on healthcare. And these are people that don't make very much money at all in their retirement. And we're very encouraged by that, and we're very engaged in those conversations with that retirement system. And then the last issue that I'll mention is what's happening with the State Department of Ed and the State Board with the strategic planning work that's been happening. Some of you may have had an opportunity to attend one of the community convenings that occurred earlier this spring to give feedback on the strategic plan. And I know the State Board is taking all that feedback, and they're going to continue to modify it. I will tell you what I am very, very encouraged by with the direction that they're going is that they understand that students are more than test scores, that we need to address the needs of the whole child, the whole child. So yeah, math and reading are critical. Of course we know that. And yes, you know, a well-rounded content that includes something near and dear to my heart because I'm a social studies teacher, you know, history and civics. But it's also about problem-solving skills and communication and all those things that we keep hearing are essential in this 21st century, you know, work environment. And what I think is really important is understanding that our students come to us with all kinds of social and emotional needs. Yesterday, everything that we talked about with breakfast in the classroom ties right into that. You know, schools aren't just factories to prepare people for the workplace. I'm a big believer in what John Dewey said, you know, and he talked about that school itself is life, right? For a lot of our kids, it's their only place where they're safe. You know, we've got students who come to school and they dread summer break. They dread the weekend. They dread snow days because they know they might not get something to eat. They know that they might not be safe when they go home. They might not even have a home to go to. So I really like the fact that we're moving in this direction. We've got to make sure that the details, you know, get straight. But all that said, it ain't gonna matter what's in this strategic plan if we don't get this right. Because think about the last time we were at this kind of crossroads, 8 years ago, when John Kasich got elected by a narrow majority and when our member turnout wasn't what it needed to be. We saw, despite all kinds of great work that the State Board had been doing for the previous 4 years, moving in the right direction. In fact, we had a constitutional school funding formula all ready to go. We were in the middle of a deep recession, and so the money wasn't there yet, but there was a plan in place in case it came in and took it all away. And immediately, $1.9 billion worth of education funding cuts. And immediately, explosion of privatization, support for vouchers and charters. And immediately, so-called reforms like the third grade reading guarantee and OTES and A to F report cards, following the Jeb Bush playbook. And, obviously, standardized testing on steroids. And House Bill 70, state takeovers. Oh yeah, and Senate Bill 5. So we've got to get this right. And we have a chance to do it. And by the way, don't expect that we're going to be in a blue wave election and somehow just this this wave of anti-Trumpism is going to solve everything. There's no real evidence that that's necessarily the case in Ohio. We're going to have to work for this. It doesn't matter what happened in New Jersey. It doesn't matter what happened in Virginia. What matters is what we do here in Ohio. So let's think about what our big goals are for 2018. Number one, we got to elect pro-public education candidates to office, starting with the governor, sending Sherrod Brown back to the United States Senate, electing pro-public education statewide office holders, electing people from both parties who support our issues in the House and the Senate. Make sure that we elect friends to the Supreme Court and the State Board of Education and to Congress. That is critical. And why does that matter? Because the decisions that they make affect us in our classrooms and our work sites every single day. But that's not all we're about. That's very transactional. That's just like, okay, then November comes and we're back to doing other stuff. The other thing that we need to do is take advantage of our situation to make sure that education is the most important issue in 2018, that we need to force candidate for every office to be talking about our issues. The board of directors established 3 strategic priorities. One is to build strong locals. One is to make sure that we're building OEA as a go-to resource on professional issues. And the other one is, based on what we hear all the time from members across the state, is that we need to elevate the image of educators, and we need to leverage the positive image of educators to improve support for public education. So we can do that. It's really hard to do it in a presidential election year when there's lots of crazy stuff that people are talking about. But there is nothing more important than education in 2018. And then the other thing is that we need to use the election as an opportunity to engage members. We need to use the election as an opportunity to show relevance and value. We need to use the election to show, and it's not about parties and it's not about politicians, it's about values and issues that matter to our students. And if we do that, we're not going to lose members after Janus. We're going to gain more members after Janus, because people will see how important it is to be part of this. It's not just an organization, it's a movement. And again, to go back to what we talked about yesterday, this is our moment. Look what Dale talked about in West Virginia, and what we see happening in Oklahoma and in Arizona and Colorado and Kentucky, North Carolina. That's spread everywhere. And what Cheryl said just a minute ago, what we're hearing in Ohio is that people support us. The other day, over 2/3 of levy issues across the state passed. It was good. We need to work on the other third, because we've got a lot of inequity in this state in terms of school funding. But let me tell you, I'll give you a little bit more detail to what Cheryl was just talking about. Polling, right before the election. Baldwin Wallace University asked people, what issues do you care about? 77%, this was the #1 issue, said they believe that we need to increase funding for public education. It is the #1 issue on the minds of the people of Ohio. And they look to us to be the experts. They look to us to be the leaders. We have never had a chance like this before, at least not in my 27 years of education. I believe this truly is a once-in-a-generation opportunity when we've got potentially all the stars aligned if we make sure that we're doing what we got to do, right? So I want to tell you, I am inspired by, I just came out yesterday. I was fired up. Don Wilson's earthquake story, that was pretty cool. But I got to tell you though, I'm so glad that he was here to share being part of that fight that got collective bargaining passed in this state 34 years ago. We're standing on the shoulders of giants like him. People who stood strong to get us to where we are. Now it's up to us to say, where do we go next? So I'm inspired by Don. I'm inspired by folks like Tony Spano and Jonathan Jurovich that just really remind us of how much impact we have on our kids. I'm inspired by Becky's words, fired up, ready to go. And Dale Lee, and what Rich Cordray said in terms of our opportunity to have somebody in the governor's office who actually sees us as the solution and not the problem. I mean, that's amazing. But more than anything else, I'm inspired by every single one of you. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're committed, the fact that you care so much about your students and your colleagues, that you're giving up a beautiful Saturday. I think it's beautiful. I don't know, maybe it's supposed to rain. But anyway, that you're here. That you're here. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do and for everything we're going to do together to make sure that we win in November. Thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions about any legislative issues? Yes, Becky, microphone 1.
Becky Brown, Princeton, speaking as an individual. I'd like a request for information and 2 points of personal privilege.
Okay.
Would you go ahead and show the address again where you'd like us to send our texts, emails, etc.?
Yeah, could we pull up the slide that shows the address to take action? It's oea.org/action. Here. That's coming up. Okay, and then while we're doing that.
Okay, well, that's coming up. For the past 3 years, on behalf of my colleagues at the Ohio Music Education Association, I have asked OEA to send somebody to give legislative updates, answer questions at our annual convention. And for the past 3 years that has happened. Scott has been there 2 years, Melissa 1 year. And it's been fantastic, the way they can reach across and share with music educators things that are happening. And in light of all the things we're saying today about reaching out, every one of those young teachers that heard that, I'm sure, is carrying that with them as they grow in their profession. The last exciting thing, Pat Bruns, who is a current State Board of Education member, former OEA, former art teacher, is planning to run again. I hope we can give her support.
Thank you, Becky. And it has been an honor to attend those OMEA conferences and always look forward to opportunities to reach out to other organizations. Microphone 3.
Thank you, Scott. Tammy Sayulan from Chardon Education Association. This is just a point of privilege, if I may. On House Bill 318, that's the one that has passed the House so far quite overwhelmingly. And that's with school resource officer training and school safety grants. So I would like to share with the body that this is legislation that, with a coordinated effort with both our Republican and our Democratic representatives in Northeast, they have been able to write this law. They have a lot of support with also the police, a lot of our sheriff's departments, and I do encourage the body that if you are able to now lobby our senators to do the same thing and make this a law, that I do believe that Governor Kasich would also sign it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Microphone 1.
Is that me? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Tanisha Smith from Mount Healthy Teachers Association, and I have raise a question of privilege, and it is in regards to Senate Bill 246. Are there plans to fund PBIS and restorative practices, meaningful and ongoing professional development to help the educators help these students stay in school?
Thank you for the question. In the bill, there's a $2 million appropriation to support schools in implementing PBIS and other strategies to to support our students. We're going to need a lot more than that as we get into the next budget cycle, and that'll be certainly something that we'll be lobbying for. But yes, one of the good things about 246 is that there is some dollars attached to that. Okay, microphone 2.
Adrian Bowden, Pickerington EA, raising I guess, kind of a question of privilege and a point of personal privilege. Scott, you mentioned that it's going to be really important to take all of us as members to become informed on who our legislators are, ensuring that we elect pro-public candidates in the fall. At this body, we voted a year ago to create a legislative scorecard to do that. And I was really excited because I feel like it's a great opportunity to inform our members on the very things that you were talking about. Currently, its only format is an online spreadsheet that's on the website. It's inaccessible, people can't find it, it's also not really user-friendly. I don't know if that is really the spirit of the intent of the MBI that we had. Do you have any plans to make this information more user-friendly, more accessible, maybe possibly publishing it in Ohio schools so that our members really can be informed when they go to the ballot box to elect those public education candidates?
Thank you for the question, and I will say that the legislative scorecard is a work in progress. One of the challenges that we have is that given the nature of the way the legislature works, we don't have a lot of specific scorecard votes because there haven't been a lot of things that actually gone to the floor. But in terms of issues related to format and how we use it and how we get the word out, appreciate your feedback. We want to continue to do that. I know our legislative committee has provided some input on that. I will tell you we've got some new staff in our communications department, and I will be sharing the feedback that you're raising with our team. Okay. So thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah. Microphone 3, delegate with the yellow card.
Thank you. Bill Lavezzi, Aurora Education Association, retired. For delegates who may be inclined to follow your advice to submit communication to their senator and their representative regarding the school safety bills, the app has a section called Actions, which, at least on my version on an Android phone, does not contain a link to that item. What does contain a link to that item is the link to the website itself.
The homepage.
And then on the website itself, it's very clear, and as you suggested, it's very easy, just trying to save people a step and avoid frustration. Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, so ohea.org, period, and that'll get you to what you needed to go. And then we'll fix that other link soon. Microphone number 1.
Amber Clark, Southwestern Education Association. Point of information. Will OEA be supporting House Bill 630 that would extend the graduation options for students that enter high school prior to 2017, so our current 10th and 11th graders? We
have been clear with the State Board of Education. That House bill was just recently introduced. I believe it was Representative Galinsky from Akron. So yes, we do support it. On the issue of graduation requirements, we've got significant pushback from both House and Senate leadership, but we have continued to advocate for an extension of the 2-year extension. Yes. Okay, don't see anybody else on the microphone. Thank you very much for your questions. Turn it back over to Becky.